Let's dive right in. Today, we are jumping straight into part 19 of a massive 20-part tutorial called The Guide to Modern Network Routing Protocols. In this specific explainer, we're zeroing in completely on chapter 19, which is all about the ISIS protocol. We're going to unpack exactly what makes it tick and figure out where this protocol actually belongs in the real world.
Just for some quick context, this entire guide comes to us from the folks over at Virtualization Options LLC. They're a Colorado-based technology research, education, and advisory organization. And honestly, reading through their research for Chapter 19 is incredibly refreshing. They just strip away all that dense, confusing command line syntax and get right to the core architectural concepts we actually need to make smart design decisions.
So here is the game plan. We're going to explore the really impressive, massive scale capabilities of ISIS, but ultimately we want to answer the million-dollar question for your IT team: is this the right tool for your specific network? Because this is a choice that can literally either save or cost an IT team an incredible amount of operational overhead. Let's figure out if ISIS actually belongs on your whiteboard or if you should be looking somewhere else entirely.
All right, Section 1, Build for the Backbone. The source text is super clear about this. ISIS is custom-built for truly massive environments. We're talking large service provider networks and ISP backbone infrastructure. We are definitely not talking about routing traffic to the printer down the hall, right? We're talking about the actual plumbing of the internet itself. It's kind of like trying to direct traffic in a global megacity instead of a small suburban neighborhood. Now, the research also points out a very practical third use case: networks that are already standardized on ISIS. In the networking world, if your massive scale setup is humming along perfectly and migrating away from it would just cause massive operational chaos, well, the smartest choice is usually just to stay the course.
Now, there's this term in the reading that really caught my eye: protocol agnosticism. To truly understand why global carriers absolutely love ISIS, you've got to understand this concept. Basically, it means ISIS isn't strictly tied down to IP routing the way some other protocols are natively built. It actually functions completely independently of the specific underlying network layer protocols. And wow, this gives massive networks just incredible flexibility when they're designing systems at a global scale. It's essentially like having a universal translator. It lets the protocol seamlessly adapt to different addressing schemes without even breaking a sweat.
And coupled with that awesome protocol flexibility is its Layer 2 resilience. This is an absolute, non-negotiable priority for hyperscalers and internet service providers. I mean, when you are managing an ISP backbone, you simply cannot afford outages. The stress of managing those environments is immense, and literally every single millisecond counts. So the ability of ISIS to maintain stability, prioritize performance, and route traffic efficiently right down at the data link layer, that makes it incredibly robust. It is built from the ground up to withstand the chaotic, high-volume realities of service provider environments. In those spaces, resilience isn't just a nice-to-have feature, it's the entire foundation of their business.
Moving right along to Section 2, Dual Stack and Seamless Scaling.
For environments running both IPv4 and IPv6 simultaneously, what we call dual stack environments, ISIS provides this massive operational relief. Just put yourself in the shoes of a network engineer at a huge ISP. Instead of having to manage two separate, incredibly complex routing topologies, you get to manage a single, operationally simpler routing instance that scales just beautifully across both protocols. Honestly, the reduction in late-night troubleshooting calls alone makes this a huge win for simplicity at scale.
Okay, that brings us to Section 3, the OSPF Reality Check.
This is where Chapter 19 delivers a real, much-needed reality check. If you're managing a standard corporate enterprise network, the reality is that OSPF covers the exact same use cases as ISIS. But here's the absolute kicker. OSPF brings with it far better documentation, vastly superior network tooling, and a massive base of community support. ISIS, on the other hand, is deeply specialized for the service provider. For an enterprise IT team, choosing ISIS could actually mean unnecessarily isolating yourself from a huge ecosystem of troubleshooting resources and standard tools that are built natively around OSPF.
Which leads us directly to this definitive, no-nonsense statement from the chapter. They write, ISIS is a service provider specialization. Unless you're working for a carrier or hyperscale operator, OSPF is the right choice. It doesn't get much clearer than that, does it? The authors are actively warning IT professionals not to be lured in by that shiny carrier-grade label if they don't actually have carrier-grade problems. Because at the end of the day, using the right tool for the job means recognizing when a tool is just way over-engineered for your specific environment.
So
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought from Chapter 19 to consider. Is your organization truly operating at the scale of a global internet backbone? Or will OSPF and its robust community serve your enterprise perfectly while saving you some serious operational headaches today? It really makes you rethink blindly chasing that carrier-grade label, doesn't it? Well, thanks for diving into this explainer with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.